Chrissy, you're all set? Okay. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just as an aside, I don't know if everybody can hear me okay. We recently received two communications regarding Migdale, and we're not going to discuss them tonight. We just got them. We want to review them. So if any of you are on the call hoping that we're going to discuss them tonight, we're not. So just want to let you know up front. And when we do, and if we do, it'll be publicized. So when we do it, Mike, do you want to introduce short-term rental?
Yes, as I mentioned at the last board meeting, the committee that had been working on researching the effect of short-term rentals in the town of Washington completed their work. We had been working on a proposed draft for a number of months, working with the attorneys and communicating and looking at data from New York State. We're now prepared to introduce a proposed local law on short-term rentals. So Gary has a process document that Jeff has created that will start the process. We'll introduce it tonight, which means that we have to begin the process of how do we review it. There will be a public hearing in July, but because we feel that this may be a very high interest topic in the town of Washington, we will schedule a special meeting rather than attach the public hearing to next month's regular town board meeting. So that's what we need to do. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the committee. Bob Audia was on the committee, John Parisi, Richard Phillips, Jeff, James, our building inspector, Mary, and I helped steer it. So I want to thank everybody for the work. But we're in position now to offer that as a local law. It will be posted if it hasn't already been on our website for people to read. I encourage everyone, both those that are involved in short-term rentals or not, to read it. It gives a lot of common sense recommendations. It gives reasons why we're taking these steps. As you know, it's not a situation that's unique to the town of Washington. Short-term rentals are issues almost in every community throughout, not just New York State, but in every state. So we're in the position now to have some guidance that our planning board, zoning boards, our building inspector, and anyone that wishes to be in that business of short-term rentals, they have guidelines to work with. So
Do you also want to mention, Mike, that it was as part of the CPRC report and hospitality
yes.
study that people were in favor of,
Yep.
of short-term rentals just regulated
Correct.
in the town?
As Leslie mentioned, yes, that was a significant piece at the end. If you remember, at the end of the comprehensive plan, after they looked at all the areas, they did address short-term rentals. We've been working on this problem for about 3 years. So prior to all of the look at the addendum to the comprehensive plan, we had been looking at that because it had become an issue. There were applications that came before planning where someone had a home, they wanted to do short-term rental, and unfortunately the planning board at the time would have to turn around and say, you can't do it, it's not allowed here in the town. However, people that didn't go before planning or zoning because they just wanted to do it, contacted the county, got a tax number, have to do as part of the process. They then thought that gave them permission to go ahead and do short-term rentals, which in effect means that people are operating, quote, illegally on a short-term rental. So we're going to give guidance and so on to that, but read it through. It's pretty comprehensive. I think it's very fair. It's a amalgamation of a lot of other towns' laws that we picked and chose, and then we also did some things that are unique to our town. So that's the process we're starting right now.
It says here that it's scheduled, the public hearing is scheduled for July 13th. 6 o'clock.
Did she already pick a date?
Is that good for you? Yeah.
July 13th is fine.
So is that our regular board
If
meeting?
it's not, if it's our regular meet, if the 13th
It's
is our regular
not
meeting,
It's not a regular meeting, I don't know.
It is, if I can say that, I looked ahead at the calendar and made July 13th the date on this resolution, thinking you do this at your next
At the
regular
next
meeting,
meeting.
but if you're gonna schedule a special meeting, it would have to be a different night.
Right.
Okay.
13th should be the second Thursday.
It is.
Okay.
In July.
Yeah, I'd still rather have a separate meeting.
So,
so could we accept this as is with that date and then
you know,
just,
you would just change the date tonight.
okay, we can change it
July
now?
13th, yes, you can change, whatever date you want to hold the special meeting
Okay.
for the public hearing.
So that
Um,
Tuesday and Wednesday are probably planning and CAC, I think, if that's the
Yeah,
second.
we're doing, the 11th and the 12th.
Okay, so,
Do the
perhaps
10th?
the week after,
Okay.
I mean, I can be here, you know.
Is anybody not going to be here in July for any reason?
So the 20th will be the next one, on a Thursday.
What is it?
The 20th
is
is the next Thursday.
That's my
Like,
birthday.
After this
What's
meeting,
that?
we want
Your birthday.
to after
All
the
right.
meeting.
Bring a cake.
We'll celebrate.
After on the 13th, you mean?
Well, after the 13th.
Sure, that's.
No, I mean,
So if there's
20th,
anything that goes on,
20th
and
is-
we'd have to wait for August to.
that would be the 20th. 20th's fine with me. You want to do the 20th? It's the following
That
Thursday.
Very
works
good.
for me,
Or
yeah.
you want to flip flop the meetings, like have it here and then have our meeting.
4th of July week might
If
be
there's
tough with
anything
people.
that we need
Yeah, I
to
wouldn't go,
resolve.
I wouldn't go
No,
towards the 4th. I would go,
No,
the
but I
20th
mean,
is
the
fine.
13th have it as public hearing and then have the 20th as our regular meeting, just in case we need
That's up
to
to the chairman.
resolve anything from the public
It's up to
hearing.
the chairman.
Otherwise, we'd have to wait until August.
That's true. It's a good idea, Joe.
We do it the 13th, so leave the 13th in and then move the regular
Regular
town
meeting to the
meeting to the 20th.
Makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the implication if we change the monthly meeting.
We did it before, right?
Yeah,
No, I know we
think
have,
that's
I'm
good.
just-
I don't know if there's as long as there's proper notice, I don't, well, Jeff, is there any reason why we can't?
No, we can do
To
it.
change it.
Yeah,
It's 10-day
Yeah.
notice, I think.
So let's do that,
okay. So the regular meeting will then become
the 20th.
the 20th.
20th.
And the public hearing on the short-term rental would be the 13th.
That way we can button up whatever happens.
Correct.
So Chrissy, would you see that that gets in on our
Yes,
website,
absolutely.
please? So it'll be July 13th.
Public hearing.
Like, the only question that I had, I'm sorry, I should have asked this of you in advance, but it doesn't, or at least I couldn't find it, it doesn't mention that the short-term rental has to be owner occupied. Was that something that that the committee thought was too restrictive, or,
We can explain that at the public hearing.
okay,
We went over that for about a long time.
Long time.
okay,
We'll talk about that.
okay, but you still want the board to go ahead and, without having,
This is a draft, yeah, we start the process, and then anything that comes up in a public hearing like that
okay,
Might
might
change this.
stimulate a reworking of certain,
Okay.
certain parts.
Okay. So we're good with that?
So if I may, you have a resolution of introduction here tonight. Somebody would have to move its adoption and second it. It sounds like you're setting the public hearing for July 13th.
Should we read this or no?
Well, we don't have to read the whole
Not
thing.
We post it.
Yeah.
The local law is part of the agenda for tonight, so it's right there in writing for anybody who wants to see it.
So I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay.
And we will have members of the committee present to help answer questions like Leslie just brought up.
Okay, so there's budget adjustments, which you have in your packet. We want to just go down quick, because we need to.
I have one correction. It wasn't a Kubota, it ended up being a John Deere.
Yeah, okay. But they're pretty straightforward.
Yep.
So if somebody wants to make a motion
I'll
to
make a
accept those,
motion to accept the
all right, second,
budget amendments.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa, you want to give your report?
Yes. All right, so Freedom's Day went well. We had 16 applications. 5 were stipulations, 8 were exemptions, and 3 were others that were determined. But it was a light year. Since we didn't increase to market values, we went on equalization rate instead due to the increases during COVID. Hoping that levels off in the future. We've had some ongoing legislation changes with exemptions, which I don't know, did we determine what we're doing tonight with that? We were possibly gonna introduce a change on the firefighter
Yeah,
exemption,
yeah.
but are we gonna
We have
table?
it.
Are we gonna still do that? What do you think, Jeff?
So there are 2 issues in that. I see that you have that resolution here. You had adopted this resolution
Right.
earlier this year, and I had made a mistake in it. When the state law was first enacted, it included a limitation on a maximum amount. It says the exemption should not exceed $3,000 multiplied by your equalization rate. So I put that in this resolution. The state then amended the state law and took that out, so it shouldn't have been in here. So if you adopt this tonight, you're just correcting that here.
Yeah,
Okay,
Separate from that, there's an issue, I think a lot of towns are looking at the scope of this. This is actually a resolution that reduces an assessment, okay, by 10%. And what does that apply to? And the answer is it would apply to everything that your assessment is used for. So it would apply to your school tax bill, as far as I know. I know it's an issue we're trying to look at. We don't have an answer on
We
it.
don't.
So if you wanted to make this correction tonight, you certainly could do that.
Right.
We may need to make a further
We're
correction
gonna have to
later
probably
on.
make another correction.
Okay.
Based on what, again, this is new legislation
Yeah.
that really hasn't been thought out, it was kind of rushed through with the governor's office, and it's.
Do we know when that is gonna be resolved, when we're gonna know?
In a month.
In a month.
Next meeting, in other
Like
words.
the next meeting, so should we wait and,
It's your call.
It's your call, really.
what
Well,
I mean?
in case it stays the same, let's just make them, I'd be glad to make the motion to
Okay.
just change to correct the $3,000, the limit.
and if there's a change after that, then we can just
The change
adjust it
won't
from
be
there.
relative to the limit, the cap
Right.
has been eliminated, so
Eliminated,
this is
yeah.
gonna be different, this is gonna be how it's actually
Right.
calculated on the roll.
Right, and we think it's a good idea,
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
as I
So-
made the
Yeah, so
motion.
Yes,
we'd already done this.
Yes.
Yes, we
so
have.
it's
It's
It's just that
correct.
limit, the
Got
limit
it.
was
Yeah.
taken off by the
Yeah.
state.
So I'll second this.
So second, and all in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Lisa?
And then the other thing was, okay, so I sent a bunch of information to all of you on the other bullet, which has to do with the senior exemption limits. I think we should probably, you need to, all of you as a board, think about what you want to do. I provided the information to you with the new limits the state has set.
Yep.
I can discuss further once the county actually passes it, what they did. I think they're kind of a middle ground, which maybe is reasonable. I don't know if any of you had a chance to look at it, but I think we might want to do something with that to adjust that, because it hasn't been adjusted in a while. And this is now for both the senior, low income, and disabled, which also has income requirements.
Well, does it make sense to wait to see what the county does?
Absolutely.
It's something that, I presented to you and you need to decide if you want my recommendation,
Mhm.
Yeah, sure.
then I can send an email to follow up on that.
Okay.
So it's nothing we're gonna decide on now, but I want, you as a
Right.
board to think,
That's great.
Yeah.
what, how your feelings are on adjusting that, which I believe by the end of the year, a lot of towns are gonna be doing. Some did it already for last year, which was a rush, and this year now it's giving all the other boards time to think about it, but I expect there are gonna be quite a few more. that will be
Perfect.
increasing it. Some went all the way to the state limit, but I don't foresee very many towns doing that, but, so I'll make my suggestion as soon as I get the information from the county.
So
As to what, because
just
they're in
a
the
quick
process.
question on
Yes.
that. Every year, though, they have to apply for this, correct? So disabled
Absolutely.
people have
This
to
isn't-
prove their disability every year, and low
That
income?
is not true. They do
No.
not need to prove their disability every year. They need to re-qualify as far as income is concerned. They need to provide their financial information every year to us,
I got the income part, but
right?
the disability part, they don't have to prove it?
Well, it depends on the type of disability. If it's a permanent disability, then it's kind
Oh,
of a
yeah,
moot point.
I
Right,
would imagine it. yeah.
Right, right.
But
And
if
that's
it's a
pretty much
partial
what this
disability,
is.
then,
I don't think we have anybody that's not on a permanent disability. I think this is for people that are permanently disabled.
thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, that's it
Good.
for now.
Thank you. Thanks for the
Any
update.
questions?
Yep. Any questions? Thanks, Lisa.
All right, sure.
Well, maybe one more question for Lisa.
What's that?
How do we make out on the deliberation on the,
Oh, yes, so that was last night. It was good. I mean, you
was
got
there any
all-
big stuff, like big huge things?
No, not really.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
Nothing we should be aware of then? Nothing
No,
mind-boggling?
there were some bigger ones I had to deal with throughout the year, but
Right.
during grievance, no.
Okay.
They were all pretty small. Yeah, so.
Okay.
I like it that way.
Yeah, really.
Made things
Absolutely.
easier.
James, you want to give us your report?
Before I get to the one item that is on the agenda regarding agricultural fees, are there any questions or comments about my monthly report, or do you want me to go through any of that?
No, the only thing I would like you to do is if you could maybe sit in that chair next to that microphone, because they will not be able to hear you. Back there.
That was my goal.
You're fine there.
You're good there.
You'll be fine there.
Okay, so if there's no
Thank you.
questions about the monthly report, the one item I had, and I brought this up earlier, I believe, was about possibly adopting a modified agricultural fee schedule. Agricultural buildings, just as some background, within a certain limited scope, don't have to comply with the construction-related provisions of the building code, so I can't require stamped drawings, I can't require construction inspections. They can voluntarily ask for those inspections. I recommend them, but I can't require them. They do still have to comply with local zoning regulations, so we still require a building permit to be issued. But the cost based on square footage when an agricultural building is usually simple, easy to review, it's been considered exorbitant. So looking over what some of the other towns have adopted, my two recommendations would be either to keep our current fee schedule and then just cap a maximum fee based on the maximum expected hourly involvement by the building department, which
6 hours.
6 hours, assuming a large building, and they request each of the voluntary inspections and a full plan review.
That would be the extent of your involvement,
Yes.
pretty much.
That would be the absolute worst case scenario. The other alternative, which some towns do adopt, is a tiered fee schedule based on square footage. I broke it down as up to 600 square feet, $100, 601 to 1,500, 200, and then capped it at roughly the same total permit cost. And to be clear, this only applies to a very limited scope of what's defined as agricultural, which would not include worker accommodations, anything that involves living accommodations, any portion used by employees to process food, anything used by the public. Those are not included.
Basically, it's a barn or
Barns, crop storage, machinery
Yeah,
storage,
yeah.
that's really the extent of it.
Well, I thought your suggestions made great sense, and they're very much in line with what Unionville has done or is doing, and
Right.
Stanfordville, it still seems figuring out what they're doing, and Dover is looking at the same thing. So I think, thanks for bringing it to our attention. I thought that James' suggestions were really thoughtful and made sense.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah. So how does this all relate to the issue that we're currently dealing with at Walbridge?
At this point, I've recommended that Mr. Giles doesn't pull his building permit. He's hoping to start, I think, later this month or early next month, and I recommended that after he wrote in his request for a reduced fee, that at that point, he just wait to pay the permit fee
Okay.
in hopes that a new schedule is adopted.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I like your recommendation for sure.
We
Yeah.
could
You
pass
think?
that.
yeah, oh, 100%. And I like the fact that it's something that's gonna be consistent.
Right, for
For
everyone.
everybody,
Yeah.
yeah.
Does that need a resolution?
I mean, you could do it with a written resolution, you do it with a motion tonight, it's
Yeah.
up to you.
Yeah, let's just do it. Somebody make that
I'll
motion.
make the motion.
I'll
Second.
Can we accept our building
James's
inspector, James's
Recommendation for the fee
recommendation
schedule
for
of
the fee
that.
schedule prior?
The tiered fee structure, right? Number 2. Correct? That's where we're going,
Yes, number 2.
to parallel the code.
Second to that motion?
No, I second it.
Second, wasn't, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks,
That's it?
James, that's great.
James.
That's it?
That's everything I have, yeah.
Holy, thanks, James.
Well, the rest he gave us.
I know, yeah. Okay, moving right along. Joe is not here. In case you don't know, his son is very sick in the hospital with
No.
a staph infection.
Which one?
Joe Spagnuolo.
Which one? Which son?
So,
Not sure which one.
Young Joe?
I'm not sure about. So I don't have his report. Did he leave a report, Chrissy?
There should be a report on the back,
Is there?
one of the last pages of the packet.
On the agenda?
On the
form?
agenda, yeah. It's a last minute add-on, second piece of paper.
I don't
Maybe
seem to have
separate,
it.
Okay.
Oh, I put
Oh,
one in
I
everyone.
have it. Oh, look at it.
I put it in everyone's mailbox.
You read it or no?
You want to just go through it, Joe, quick?
Oh, I see it.
I don't have it.
So Joe talks about a new truck as per the ODS prices, includes body, cab, and chassis, and all accessories that we requested. So the prices are $78,776, $72,364, $64,262.
I spoke to him today, and he thought that was a very good price.
Yeah, since we've got some similar ones to that before, so.
Right.
So, as far as chips, he's receiving paving pricing for Bangor Road from the Shunpike to the town line, Ring Road to the town line, and South Road from Cairo Road to Orange Culvert at Sarandale. Mowing is underway. Regarding Killern Road, CT Malley Associates has not submitted the final report to the survey yet. Engineering traffic study is probably going to take place on or about June 14th. Expecting a revised report from Colliers after that. Still waiting to hear if the town has been awarded the Bridge New York contract for the Oak Summit culvert repair.
Yeah, they haven't announced it yet. No,
That was supposed to be in April,
Yeah,
so.
we saw that copy.
I
from
did,
the
yeah.
hearing.
Yep. Yep.
And they were expecting to hear in April, May, so
Yeah,
they
right,
still
yeah.
haven't heard.
That's it for Joe.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
We got a notification that the county is gonna replace the bridge on Stanford Road.
Burbank Road, I know.
It says
Stanford
Stanford.
as
Yeah.
well.
Well, Stanford too,
as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Where is that bridge?
That's down by the sewer plant.
Oh, that part.
That
Oh, the
bridge.
bridge where the dam is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was racking my brains where that
Yeah.
bridge could be.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Of
still
course, yeah.
Stanford, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks
Yeah.
for clarifying that.
Yep.
That's gonna be a big.
Yeah, it's gonna be creative.
I don't think it's gonna create much problem though, because, I mean,
Well,
It's only the people on that road getting into the village, they just have to take Front Street.
the Verbank Road one is gonna be a problem for,
Oh, yes.
that's gonna be
Yeah.
closed for like 4 to 6 months. But they're gonna come to us later this year to give us a complete rundown.
Yeah.
So I thought we would just invite the people that live down there that are gonna be impacted by it. Chrissy, did you wanna go over what you have,
If you'd like
please?
to.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay, so, for the monthly reports, they're being prepared for May, we're just waiting for bank statements. Tax collection is complete, we're in the process of closing out with the Dutchess County Commissioner of Finance. We are in the process of handing out transfer station renewal permits. A legal notice has been filed to advise the annual financial report, that was filed with the Office of the State Controller, and a copy is available on the town website. A town clerk Alex and clerk Thorpe are working on the website upgrades with the new vendor. And to schedule the public hearing for short-term rental legislation, we did that.
Yeah.
Right, and,
13th.
Yep,
the STR legislation will need to be provided to the Planning Board, Conservation Advisory Commission, and Dutchess County Planning for comments.
Right.
And each entity has a 30-day response time.
very good, okay.
Was it provided to them? It should have been already, right?
As of tonight.
As of tonight.
Thanks, Chrissy.
Did you, people in the back, there are 2 seats up here if anybody wants to sit. Okay.
Bob, you wanna give your report?
Yeah, I don't have much, just in line with Joe's report. Joe and I are going to put our heads together about paving out here in parking spaces and possibly the drive, especially that east drive of Town Hall. Also, he's gonna meet with me at the town park to figure out how we're gonna clean out the culvert where the drain pipe is for the pool before we close for the season up at the town park. So we're gonna try to do that, hopefully like right away, so we know whether it's something that we can do ourselves or whether we gotta hire somebody to do it. I think we can do a lot of that ourselves. The other thing is that something that we have to think about is if we decide that we want to outsource that paving for those parking spaces, the village and the town are supposed to share it 50-50. We got a low quote of $6,400, so it would cost us $3,200. I'm pretty sure, and Chrissy can verify this, not tonight maybe, but let us know in an email or something. I believe we put like $22,000 in the budget to replace the ramp.
Yeah.
The handicap ramp. And James was nice enough to give us a material list, even using the more expensive material of about $7,000, less some other hardware and things like that. And Jonathan thinks if the stanchions in the ground are in good shape, that he could do it. Our own help can do it. So we would have money left over from that budget line to do the parking spaces. So I would like everybody just keep that in their mind.
You were thinking, Bob, that maybe the highway department might be-
Well, the only problem is their paving machine that they purchased and fixed up, they bought it as a salvage paving machine, doesn't have a hopper on it. So you have to back up to it with a truck, and those spaces, there's no way they could back up to it, so they can't use that machine. They could probably do it by hand, but it might not look too good. It won't look very professional. Compared to some of the prices they got, the $6,400 price was a pretty decent price to do the whole thing. So we may go that route. Joe and I are going to discuss it a little further with the village guys and get it done. The reason we haven't been rushing it is Central Hudson still hasn't hooked up the power. So I wrote to Livingston Energy. I've sent them an email 3 times so far this week, haven't had an answer. I did get an answer saying they're looking into it to see if they can rush Central Hudson and get those things hooked there. That's pretty much it. Yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike, you want to give your report?
Yes, before I do though, I'd like to give the recreation report. Danielle is doing some training today, or tonight, up at the rec area with the lifeguards and the counselors, with the state people, so she could not be here. But she asked me to give you some highlights of her report. Under recreation, seniors, there's still space available for the senior activities. There's a senior luncheon Thursday, June 15th at 12 noon at the town pool building. Lunch will be catered. It's free to all town of Washington residents. Please call to RSVP or register online.
Mike, excuse me, what date is that?
June 15th at 12 noon. It's a Thursday. There's a senior trip to Lake George. You must have Town of Washington Rec account to sign up. It is Saturday, July 22nd. Bus will leave at 8:15. Board the bus at 8:15. It'll leave at 8:30. Ride to Lake George. There's steamboat ride, lunch. Bus will be home by 6 o'clock. They can sign up on the website. No cost to town residents. Must have an account on the website to sign up for the trip. If you are a non-resident, it's $50. She also included a lengthy list of lifeguards, counselors, recreation assistants who have been hired for the summer programs up at the town pool, which includes camp, and then, of course, the lifeguards in the afternoon for the town pool. Camp registration right now is at 107 campers, 9 pre-K campers, and 15 counselors in training. Staff training for camp is happening now, 4 o'clock. The Department of Health will do a presentation on child abuse. We'll both be making presentations along with our camp management staff. Park updates. Park is officially open on weekends from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Weekdays beginning June 27th from 12 noon to 6 p.m. In order to keep the pool open, there must be an experienced lifeguard that are 18 and older. These lifeguards tend to be college students and go to school mid-August. Therefore, we're projecting that the pool season will most likely end around August 13th. And that's a problem that many communities are facing. A lot of communities are facing not even running their waterfront projects because there's not enough lifeguards. We were lucky enough to get enough to open our program. One firm was present for the pre-bid meeting at the town park for the upgrades to the building. She indicated it went very well. They were interested. Since there are no plans for the building, they will have to be created. From what I understand, there were 100 inquiries into the bidding process. One firm put in a bid. It was Lodi and Lodi's company, and she recommends that we move forward with hiring Ed Lodi for that project. The pavilion rentals to date, there's been 26 rentals. Both some have happened, some have not. And she would also like to thank Joe Spag and part of the Highway Department for repairing a broken pipe in the chlorine printer pump system. And that is her report. Dovetailing that.
Mike, excuse me, before we go on, we need to officially appoint these
Yes.
people, these lifeguards, and also the, just lost my train of thought.
The counselor.
The counselors.
Counselors.
The counselors.
Do you want me to read through the list or just?
No,
I'll
we
make
have a
a
list of
motion
who they are.
That we appoint the lifeguards that she has stated, the counselors, the recreational assistants, and the camp employees.
Did we do that last?
She did go through the list,
I
but
think
This is new, this is the lifeguard list.
Right.
We got a different counselor
The
list.
council
Correct.
list was, okay, so it's a
Right.
lifeguard.
so I'll make the motion to appoint them.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, under my report, update on the progress with wetlands and solar code suggestions. I will be meeting on June 15th with several members of the planning board to go through the various clauses within both of those local laws that seem to have presented some issues to both zoning and planning whenever an application comes forward. Susan, who is the chairman, Susan Beanie, believes it might be just wordsmithing that needs to be done, but we will be meeting on the 15th to go through those. The Discussion of future projects at the Town of Recreation Park. We've announced before that we're putting together a group of professional tradespeople from the community to take a look at the rec area. As you know, that rec area dates back to the late 1940s, 1950s. It's starting to show its age, so we want to bring some professional people in to take a look at it of what could be upgraded, what needs to be repaired, what needs to be new, and then working with Danielle, looking at what programs might be available to us now that we're looking at expanding the use of the building. Before we go ahead and do that, I'm going to ask the board, not for an answer tonight, but to give some thought on if we're going to go through these processes and begin to adopt these projects, how do we want to approach the town recreation area hours of opening? Right now, the front gate is only open when the pool is open, and it's closed when the pool closes down, the gate out front. The upper area is left open for people to walk the paths. But even that gate has started to be locked because there's been some abuse after hours up there with people parking and misusing the
It
property.
was a one-time thing.
So we need to start thinking about how do we address keeping that park open if we're going to start investing money, investing programs, putting new types of equipment, expanding some of the uses. How are we going to address that? Keeping it maybe open from 8 o'clock in the morning to sunset. I'll do some research on what other parks do, but that's something that we'll need to discuss. And then once we come to that resolution, then it would make sense to start recommending some programs. There's no sense in putting things up there that people can use if we're going to lock the gate. So
Maybe the rec commission wanted
They're gonna
to
be
give some
parts of
thought
it,
to it and
Yep.
come to us with some
I'll address them
recommendations.
at their next meeting. But
Okay.
You've got to start thinking those kinds of things.
You had the idea, which I think is really smart, of the getting a rec card with a code, so people have access,
There
and
could
then
be-
you know who's
yeah.
coming in and who's coming out.
Could be ways of doing that.
Um,
There might be, for instance, don't quote me on this, there's a great demand in many, many communities for pickleball. There may be some facility piece up there that would be accommodating to that kind of activity. If you're going to put those kinds of courts in, like you would put in a tennis court, people need access to that. You can't keep the gate locked till 12 noon. You've got these beautiful facilities where you've invested good money in it. So those are the kinds of things we've got to start thinking about. The next thing is, we talked about senior picnic, recreation director. That's all I've got.
So do we have to appoint Ed?
I think so. Did we
We
get a
didn't
resolution,
appoint
Jeff,
Ed.
to
Is that
appoint
right?
after we have the.
We have to appoint
got the
Ed.
bid from
Accept
Ed for
that.
the.
Was there a written bid submitted? I haven't seen, but,
Yeah.
Yeah, Ed, you submitted, right?
Yeah.
Ed?
Yes.
There was a question that Mary had about getting the, from the grant people, okaying the choice. Mary sent us an email.
So, Danielle has been in contact with them, and they are aware, and I was copied on the email. I mean, we can certainly hold that pending their approval, or make a motion for it pending the
Absolutely.
approval.
We
but
can
I
do
know-
that.
I believe it, they were okay with it, if that was
Yeah,
the last
I
email
would
that I saw.
definitely, yeah, I would
Yeah.
definitely make the motion.
I think what the hangup was that I think the requirement was that we had to have an engineer,
Right,
but you're qualified to do both.
I'm an architect, and
Right,
you can check this with the state law, if I'm pretty qualified.
Right. but because we've done this in the past,
Yes, we have.
right? So I think we can do that.
We can do that.
I'd be glad to make the motion to hire the Lodi firm pending that the grant
Whatever
people
county approvals
approve,
that we need, yeah.
need to get.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Joe?
Okay. So let me just do the easy part with the zoning board update.
Okay,
And then, so at the last zoning board meeting, which was the 16th of May, there were two items on the agenda. The continuing Upton Lake area variance for a peak roof on the high school, and the Dan Yagard Stanford Road swimming pool. So the Upton Lake, again, once again, was tabled, waiting for the secret determination. Dan Yagard, motion, Frank Retto repealed his motion that he made 2 months ago to hold, and a motion to hold it, a public hearing, keep that open until next meeting, is because they're waiting for paperwork pending new application from the applicant. So the meeting was adjourned at 7:33 and it started at 7:30.
Oh,
Okay, very simple. Next meeting, June 20th. Stay tuned, it'll probably be the same thing. So moving on to the comprehensive and the overlay districts. So as per last meeting, Nan requested that we outline a map to show her how we feel the boundaries for the overlay districts will be in Washington Hollow and on Ramble Hill and then across from Bennett. I don't know if anybody else looked at that, but driving down in Washington Hollow, let's start there. The only areas that we have sort of a town jurisdiction over is the areas where the Cottonwood is, and then across from that where it's now the kitchen and bath, Squeaky Campbell's complex there. The rest of the areas, Copperfields is now in Pleasant Valley, and so which is also Washington Hollow. So moving back towards the Cottonwood, it's surrounded by Cary Arboretum land, which between the Copperfields and Cottonwood, it's all swampland. So that would be my suggestion, would be to have the Cottonwood and the area across, which is again the kitchen and bath. And then the Daytop area, which is known now as Ramble Hill, which I think I outlined a map everybody wants to see. It's, you could see where.
I also printed out parcel access of the property.
Okay.
For the board to see the
Good
data
for you.
section.
So, yeah, so this would be the area of Daytop that we proposed for that overlay. And then, again, it would be the section right across between the Route 82 and the monument, right across from Bennett.
Do you want to add, Joe, that the reason why that's outlined is because this part, the area across from Bennett and the Ramble Hill with College Lane was specifically described in the hospitality addendum.
Yeah.
We just you just followed that as a guide.
Yeah.
The reason why Nan gave us this resource map to look at, and this one, I printed this one that she sent because it had, you can see the line of Pleasant Valley. It's because I think, at least I thought Washington went further over than it does. And it really stops at the bath and kitchen place on the left side. And then all around it where there's red is all wetlands and non-buildable land. So
that's right.
what she said is, she said, listen, if you put that technically in hospitality overlay, your wetlands law still applies, but nobody can build anything.
Is that little piece right there.
And here's the Cottonwood right there on either side of Fowler.
Right.
And those structures are already built, and that is, it says that high overlap area right here. Everything here across is wetlands.
Yeah.
And then the other important piece, I think, this is a map here that shows what the residents, when they kind of put in order of preference.
So like when before the comprehensive plan review,
See where that's 44 is here.
there were hearings, and then the residents would be able to put a dot, like this is the top area we want, this is the second, this is the third. So you were pointing out that where the Cottonwood and Washington Hollow,
this is the map that was
come,
used. It stops on the corner. So when people said that was their third choice, Village was number 1, right?
Yeah.
The area outside the Village was number 2, and Washington Hollow was number 3. in their minds, and I think Washington Hollow at the most would go up to Route 44.
Right.
And it was described, and I didn't know this, in the,
So
I
you
found
can
this in the
see where it
addendum.
wouldn't go past. According to that.
Hold on a second.
Just curious though, why would the overlay district, as far as hospitality goes, include Campbell's Place?
Well, I suggested that because it's a business area now and it's the only other business area besides the Cottonwood. So
You're looking in the future, that
in
if
the
something
future,
should
like
change.
God forbid, Campbell decided to, go bust,
Right, okay.
and then they at least have that option.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Without just pinpointing this one Cottonwood area, you have another choice in Washington Hollow
Right,
that is, an appropriate area versus, someone's house that you can't do anything else with.
Right.
Because, the acreage is too small, or you're on next to, like, we have to be aware that the Wappingers Creek runs on both sides down there, and you can't build, within 100 feet of that.
that's
So,
right.
I mean, we're kind of limited in the space, so.
Here's the other part from the recommendations. It says it is envisioned that the overlay district for the Washington Hollow area would be limited roughly to parcels already within the RL5 zoning district, which have street frontage on Route 44 extending from the town of Washington border east for some distance, possibly to Tyrell Road, which is where the back place
Right.
is,
Yeah.
but likely not further than the intersection of Sharon Turnpike, which is where it is on that map. So that's where we were thinking would make sense, recognizing that, we could include the farm center or not. Of course, that's there because it's ag, it's ag. It's an exception because it's ag in a residential area.
Yeah.
But it also has, I don't even know if you could, besides that one structure, it's got all around it, from this map, it has non-buildable land because it's either surface water or wetlands there. Because that Wappingers Creek is quite, creates quite a, do you have the same, you've got this, everyone's got this one, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of-
Yeah, we're from.
So that parking lot of the former Cottonwood, the rec area, that back parking lot, that gets impacted quite a bit on flooding and so on. So
Yeah.
Now, my question, driving down there and looking at it the other day, if you're in that parking lot and you're looking east from the tip of their parking lot up the hill all the way to IES, it's pretty forested. I mean, it's overgrown trees and so on. Where does IES's property fall in that wooded area? Or does the IES property, Farm and Home Center, go right up to the walls of the building?
I don't know the answer
So,
to that. We can check that.
If I may, I
Yeah.
can tell you.
Oh,
I
yes, you
actually
can.
surveyed that.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Brad.
Great.
That whole intersection of the Sharon Turnpike going west to the parking lot, basically, of the Farm and Home Center, is all IES property.
Okay.
See that? Okay, so
Yeah, I also
basically
think,
surrounded
and
by.
I think I mentioned this in an email, but as far as residents, I don't think they would, I don't speak, but envision having a hotel there where there isn't something already there on a kind of wooded area adjacent to Cary that's known for nature and trails and things like that. But that's just my thought there. And then, of course, it's hard to tell exactly, we can see that there's non-buildable land there for whatever reason, whether it's wetlands or surface water or the creek being too close, but it was helpful, I think, having this description and guide here. And then Nan also said, so I spoke with her the other day, because we were trying to figure out this College Lane, Ramble Hill thing. And she said what she recommends is for us to give her a general idea of the area, which is what we're talking about now. And then she also provided us with an outline of things she would cover in a draft overlay, and then both the maps and the language would be put together, and then she would present that to us for discussion,
Like
and
once-
then we would refer it to
Right,
public hearing.
once we pinpoint areas of the overlay and we can just tell her like the areas on the map, and then she will come up with the whereases and what fors.
Okay.
So what's everybody think?
Well, I'm very much on the fence with these overlays. I cannot wrap my head around the fact that even though we've put it all into perspective in the the process that they went through for hospitality. And my problem is I'm worried about in the future. For instance, let's take Daytop, for instance, okay? I mean, I was involved on the ZBA when Daytop wanted to come to Millbrook. And we spent 2 years, I think, in meetings. And, they have an entrance on College Lane to that property.
Yeah.
And, that's all residents. And, nobody's gonna want, a hotel up there with people driving up and down College Lane, maybe from Ramble Hill. I mean, that's when they put the drive-in Ramble Hill,
Yeah.
was when Daytop expanded and all hellfire broke loose. But I still can't, I'm not a legal person. Jeff answered it and said that he didn't think, or maybe he was stronger than that, but we created few overlays to allow a certain use. What's to say somebody else comes with almost, right outside the village with, a nice building or something, and they say, well, we want an overlay. I mean, how can we fight something like that when we're creating
Well,
these
we can
overlays? When we
fight it.
zone,
Yeah, we
You
can
don't
divide it.
you have no need.
and you are who?
My name is Eliza Dyson, but
Oh.
the town board never has to approve something that's outside the zoning. You don't even have to address if it's not currently in your zoning for that area, a property owner has no right to demand it if that area is not currently zoned for it.
Well, this is not zoned for it.
Yeah.
But if you have an overlay district in a certain area and someone is in a different area, they cannot demand an overlay district from that area be applied to them.
I guess,
Well, these people are asking for an overlay district that's not zoned for hospitality.
No,
Yeah, but so the reason why we're suggesting creating the overlay districts is because of the recent comprehensive plan review.
I understand that.
So that's where we would have the basis of, okay, this is the reason why we have the overlay district here, and this is the reason, the same reason why you can't have it
Okay,
there.
so,
Do you see what I mean?
okay, well,
Because it's
I'm just gonna
outlined.
tell you that I think that the overlay district for Washington Hollow, for the Cottonwood,
Yeah,
okay, is a great idea. Because it's really right on Route 44, everything. But when you take a piece like Daytop and you create an overlay district, I mean, just because somebody came into town and they say, I want to buy that and put a hotel up there, all of a sudden we're going to create an overlay. Well, what if somebody else comes in another area and says, I want to put a hotel
But I
in here and I
think-
want an
No, Bob,
overlay?
Yeah.
this is the difference, though. Sorry, Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we went
It's right
through-
outside the village,
Yeah,
let's
but
say
we
right
went-
outside the
We
village.
went
Yeah.
through a full process,
Oh, I
right?
understand.
Where the community and the committee wrote specifically that the people want it exactly in these places.
They didn't say anything about Daytop.
Yeah, they did. They said College Lane over. That was to include Daytop.
Okay,
We spoke to
There's an
Nan.
area
Nan
in
also
there.
responded to
Okay.
all of us and said, the reason why it has to be a hospitality overlay, not a commercial district, is because this process is an addendum to the comprehensive plan. We can only legislate based on the comprehensive plan. So we can only legislate here for hospitality unless we open up the plan entirely new and have a conversation about commercial districts, which would be another process, just like this,
Yeah,
until
and
we open up the plan.
I thoroughly understand that. I
Okay.
just think legally, we'd be in trouble.
Well, you know what? Jim Stout, who's a land use lawyer who advised the CPRC, said this is exactly the best and most appropriate way to legislate for it. And this is what Nan does in her experience as an expert consultant for municipalities doing just this.
Do we have
So-
any other overlays in the town? I don't believe we do. I don't think
But
so.
Bob, we already, the thing is, we already.
There is one in the
addendum
village.
to- We
I have
have
one in the
addendum
village.
to,
Thorn building.
The Thorn Building is
Right,
overlay.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So this is really specific, and I feel very comfortable with it because of the fact that it was vetted by Nan and by Jim Stout and recommended, and we have very clear guidelines. Once we do the overlay, no, you can't make another application to do an overlay somewhere else. If it's outside of the scope of this addendum, we can only legislate based on the parameters of this. And we said in this that we were going to do it by overlay.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. But
So I have a question.
I still don't, I'm having a hard time swallowing an overlay for daytop. I'm just having a hard time. And I think that when that gets opened up to public hearing, I think we're gonna get.
If there's an application for that piece of property, we aren't sure whether there's gonna be an application brought forward to the planning board that would be applicable to that particular
Right,
overlay.
exactly.
No,
The planning
no,
board
wait a
still has to
second now.
review
Correct,
every
correct.
single application, size, scope. It has water, it has septic, it's been a commercial property.
It wasn't overlay.
You know, so I do think the residents,
Yeah,
yeah,
I have a
so,
question. We adhere to all of the recommendations, which I totally agree with, and we do the overlays. And the hotel, Cottonwood does their thing. But we're kind of approving a generational project. Because once that's designated as a overlay for hospitality, does that go with the owner or does it go with the land? In other words, if they were to 15 years from now, dissolve it because of financial conditions or whatever,
Yeah.
and the hotel goes down, someone comes in, buys the property, does that purchase
Yes.
have to be hospitality or the overlay disappears?
they could then petition
To
for a special
disappear.
use, a use
Yeah.
permit for
Okay.
something else.
Okay,
And the town could reject that
correct.
outright, just like it is now. I mean,
Correct.
I don't even know if the Daytop people, because it's been a commercial site historically, could have just applied for a special use permit
Right.
and been successful. I think they could have, because it's been had a commercial use.
So the overlay stays no matter who the owner is, and then they go special use.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Fine.
I have a question. You described the limits of Cottonwood and Dayton. What were the boundaries of the village overlay?
Sure. Do you want to give Skip
Uh,
that map? It's
So-
the property right across from Bennett. Do you want to?
Right, between Route 82 and the monument.
That's in the town. On the town side?
And the
Yes,
town
on the
side.
town
On the
side.
town side?
Yeah,
So it's not village?
right.
Not
town.
village.
You're
Because
describing it as
can't,
village.
we can't legislate.
Outside the
I know you
village,
can't.
yeah.
That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, here, Skip. It's a pretty limited area,
Yeah.
But it's described, like in the plan again, it clearly.
I know where you're going.
Yeah.
I know where you're going. Those lots have sewer on them. too.
Yeah.
No, do town. So is
and
this,
that will be a beautiful park. I don't know if you were at the, which is exciting, on the other side where Bennett was.
so is this all the data that Nan would need to do the
She would-
formality of what we're looking at?
Basically, what she's
And that
asking for
outline.
now is the, like, the map,
The rough
the
draft.
rough draft of what we, and then she will come up with.
Okay.
And she'll give, the question about where's IES or, whatever starter ends, she'll have it actually defined lines there.
It's less.
And how long a process
I think
did we
that's
feel
fine.
that she would need for that?
Well, she gave us the rough outline. She wants general ideas for parameters, and then she will draft. I mean, it's possible that she would have a draft for us to look at by the July meeting, and then we would refer it for a public hearing, depending on what thoughts or changes we may have for August or September. And then there's a bunch of things, Jeff, I remember you mentioning this, or maybe Nan mentioned this to us when we went over the outline. Then from that point, there's a referral process. It first has to be reviewed by the planning board. has to go to county. There's a couple of steps in referral, maybe even before the public hearing. So that might be between her draft and then the public hearing. We have to get, I don't know if there's seeker involved or.
Seeker would definitely be
Yeah.
involved, and I don't know the timing of the referrals. You would
Yeah.
have to make a referral to county planning, and you
Yeah.
probably do to the planning board under your local town code.
Yeah,
But what the timing is, I don't know offhand.
so, 4 months, I don't know, give or take.
Okay, so I guess the next thing would be just make a motion to have the overlay districts as proposed today to give them.
Do you have your map
Yeah.
that you skipped? Did we get that back
Yeah.
from you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you got
Okay,
it.
excellent. Then I guess that would be part of the
So we'll give this map to
this map
Nan.
that you've
and-
reviewed and
Right. And then she will come up with what areas and what boards. Right?
Oh, she said we don't need a board resolution. if we
For
don't
this
want-
part.
For this,
For this part.
or for the outline, but if we're comfortable what she gave us of an outline of all the things that would be incorporated into the draft. Do you have a copy of that?
Of what?
The outline that she sent us?
Yes.
It's all in an email. If anyone has questions on it, she can.
Yeah, I read it.
you can-
Yeah, okay, so.
It's
Well, we
pretty
should make this
straightforward.
part of the record. so-
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Okay, so I made that motion.
Okay, so
Okay,
you want to
second.
officially make a second? Leslie,
Sure.
all in favor?
I abstain.
Abstain, okay. So let the record reflect Bob abstained. And then Mike, Leslie, Joe, and I were ayes. Okay?
Okay,
We're done?
that's it.
That's
Yeah,
it?
That's it for you.
Yeah.
Hold on, everyone. Hold on a moment.
Now,
Quite a
Leslie-
few things.
Yeah,
Um,
yep.
Okay, CSC and NRI, the CSC, Climate Smart Community Task Force, really Margaret and I have been spending a lot of time with Cornell Cooperative. We're continuing to meet with them to prioritize the different initiatives that New York State has outlined for the town of Washington, where we can move forward in getting credits. If we get a certain number of credits, we get certain levels of certification that help us in getting different grants. I wanted this is the villages, this is what we're working on with Cornell. This is the villages spreadsheet that they've done with them already. It'll give you an idea of all the different actions. And then we have a person assigned to each one and a time frame. So I just I made a copy of this because it was in the, if you all want to see it, you can kind of get an idea of what sort of things we're doing. Things are going well. Margaret and I met with Cornell yesterday, and should be about another month or so before we'll have a final report. And we look forward to sharing that with the full board. At that time, we'll go back to the CSC task force to share with them the final draft, and then we'll work with them to come up with priorities, and then we'll come back to you all. We're, as you all know, working with the village and with the town of Clinton on our natural resources inventory. We've been plugging along with that as well. Margaret and I met with Jen Glasson and Mike Herzog last week. They're both the village sort of leadership reps for the NRI. We will be hosting tables at the farmers market on June 24th, July 15th, and August 19th. We have brochures, we're developing bumper stickers, we're thinking about t-shirts. It's very exciting, and we're going to be sharing with residents that we're working on an NRI, explaining to them what is an NRI, and getting their feedback. And they're also printing our first draft maps for us that we can share, and residents can look and see, where all the resources are, which is really exciting. That should be all completed by the end of the summer. And then our hope and goal is we'll review those maps with the town board, planning and zoning. We would try to incorporate those new maps as our reference maps for zoning and planning. The planning board met on Tuesday. They had 3 applications before them. Upton Lake, which Joe, you mentioned the ZBA, so it's never dull. This is the 7th time they've been before the planning board. They keep sort of changing their minds. But they finally have been referred to a public hearing. They're asking for a site plan approval and a wetlands permit to put in a new driveway, and I think maybe a parking lot. Howard, is that right?
You're extending the parking spaces on the building, and some of it's in the wetlands buffer,
Right.
and that's the issue.
Yeah. So they'll have a public hearing in July, if anyone would like to attend to learn more about that. Dutchess Day School needed a special use permit because they'll be using a new building that they purchased for educational use. There was no opposition from the public. That was approved. Should also mention that Dutchess Day School has very graciously and generously offered to make a payment in lieu of taxes to the town, because as an educational institution, they don't have to do that. It's being, taken off the tax rolls, but they will be making a contribution in the amount of the current taxes to the town, which is really very kind and generous of them. And they've also offered us the use of their gym in the winter for our rec basketball, which is terrific.
Yeah, I spoke to Deidre, or what's it?
Danielle.
Danielle, too many people. But to Danielle to set up a meeting and sit down and go over.
Right, excellent.
Wow.
And the head's happy to walk you all through and give you a tour, and he was very thrilled to be able to offer that. So that's really very kind, and I'd like to thank him on the record.
Absolutely.
There's an application from the Alexander family for, it's a site plan approval because they're trying to increase their addition on their house is larger than 25%. They had a public hearing. No neighbors, were present to oppose it. In fact, they had numerous letters in support of it. It's a very simple addition. That was
Is that Eric Alexander?
Yes, and he recused himself from the discussion. I should mention too, Nicole Drury, who's a member of the planning board, is also a board member at Dutchess Day. She recused herself from that conversation as well. CAC met last night. They are, Margaret provided an update on the NRI work we've been doing in the CSC. I should also, Margaret's here, and I just want to publicly thank Margaret. Margaret spends hours every week and every month
True.
donating her, time, her time, talent, and treasure in some cases to the town. And she's doing incredible work for the NRI and for the CSC and for the CAC and for our Zoom. So Margaret, thank you so much. And I have a plaque for Margaret from PACE, from our Lula training that I forget to keep giving. I meant to bring it tonight. It's in my kitchen. And my kids are like, why are you keeping Mrs. Schneibel's plaque hostage? So I will make sure to get that.
Give you a hand.
So CEC also discussed how they can, have sort of share their comments with the planning board and the zoning board, in a timely way, and they do it already in a timely way, but maybe have the order of the comments be presented to them so they can actually use them earlier on in their deliberations. They also had a discussion about how town residents could have more information about, certain important parts of their property, whether they have wetlands or other things. Sometimes it seems, and we've had this with certain properties in town where a real estate agent may advertise it as a commercial property, but it actually is a residential property. And so how do we educate residents? Should we do something, planning, zoning, and CAC for real estate agents? What can we do to sort of help keep those lines of communication open and let them know kind of what they should and shouldn't convey to potential buyers? They talked about their no mow May signs. I don't know if people have seen people not mowing, but it's great for the pollinators. And we'll get back to the town with comments on the short-term rental law. Justice Court, we got the, I think it was Lois who sent us sort of the budget and for the costs and revenue there. Betsy Moss, Gary, she told me that Washington signed on to be a part of that task force that's looking at all the courts, the Eastern Duchess group.
Yeah.
We should definitely do that. I'll volunteer. Any of us, I'm sure, would be happy to do it. And it's an important conversation for us to have. But I think we also need to probably talk to the special prosecutor, find out why our revenue is going down. I mean, we we have some ideas of why, but I'd really like to do a deeper dive to find out what's
Shouldn't we also be having a conversation with the village?
Yeah, I was
should,
going
but
to
I-
suggest that tonight.
I think we should, but I think we should know where is it fewer tickets are being written, it's a special prosecutor not enforcing the ticket, or the price of the tickets is one of the things that, I called the Association of Towns to find out, for
You know
example,
what,
yeah,
like, the tickets generate revenue, but they do not generate the revenue that we will need. You see what I mean? There's
True.
basic costs of the judges' fees and the clerk's fees and this and that fees, which is very easy to present to the village.
But
Just
we've seen
something
a
like
huge
that,
decline,
like
though,
this
Joe.
is your half, this
Yeah.
is our, do you see what I mean?
but the
Because
decline in revenue is
what
so
would be-
significant.
right.
We used to be,
what would be
Yeah.
nice to have is a breakdown of village reasons for coming to court versus town.
Yeah.
And 90% of them are village, which we can show them
Yeah.
that to justify why we were asking for
Well,
pittance
just-
from them.
Joe, just, I've studied it a little bit. I mean, just on the village website, they have how many, for instance, in April, they gave 3 traffic tickets, 6 parking tickets, 6 traffic stops with no tickets,
Right.
8 parking complaints. We don't have the sheriff giving any tickets
Mhm.
in the town, and we don't have the state police.
Right.
somebody
Yeah.
should be on South Road, because I was on South Road the other day. No,
That's-
I'm kidding, but I'm not. and
Well, that's
people-
where,
yeah.
that's where our problems are. We're not being policed, number one. Number two, I spoke to the special prosecutor. If Joe Rockford gets a ticket and he's got a good record and his background check is good, they're gonna let him plead it down. They don't have to necessarily plead it could be parking in front of a fire hydrant, which is a pretty decent fine.
Yeah,
but,
well, I can tell you about 3 years ago, I did just exactly that. Do you know how much I had to pay before leaving this court?
Yeah.
Over $200.
Right.
Okay, and
Right.
most of them were like court fees, so,
Exactly.
I think
Yeah.
it would be
The
beneficial.
state gets most
So-
of it.
you know,
I think it would be beneficial, and Bob and I have been kind of working on this for the last 3 years too, to sit before the village board and give them the printout that Lowe's created and show that, a good percentage of the dollars that are even taken in by the court don't even stay here for the village or the town, it goes to the state. And then some changes on the governmental level as far as the overtime for state police drastically impacted the courts
Absolutely.
and the appearance of troopers after hours at courts, and therefore tickets lessen. The communities that make the most money on their small courts are those that have the Taconic State Parkway pass through them. You go into Columbia County, you go down to Putnam County,
Sanford
all of those communities,
Stanford made
6 figures.
$200,000.
Six figures.
Because they have the Taconic.
Mylan.
Now, the cost of the
Divide.
court here, with the building, the clerk, the infrastructure, and the judges and the clerk, all of that, even if we were to be able to double the fees, as you mentioned, would not cover the cost. So I think a good conversation, as they do come to us periodically and say, would you share the cost of the roof for the fire department? Will you share the cost for the parking out front? I think our presenting to them, and I was going to recommend we get on their agenda for the June 14th meeting and just have a conversation.
On a percentage basis also.
Have a conversation.
Yeah, but it's a
100%.
We brought them over here to save them money.
That's
Yeah.
We
right.
bailed them out, that's why they're in this room.
That's right.
100%, I mean, 90% of the reason why this court is in session is because of the village.
That's right.
And the other thing too is that the purpose of the court is not just to adjudicate the tickets. Our judges do other things besides the ticket, but that's the only revenue stream you get for a town is the tickets and the fines on trespassing and so on. They do other things that don't generate dollars, but you still have to maintain the court and incur that cost. So I think sitting in front of the village and just giving our opinions, come to kind of a conversation and an agreement that if they could help us share some of these expenses, and then continue to look at
I think
the other
I think we
joint
have to.
ventures that the
Well, the
other
task force is
supervisors
gonna
are
help us.
starting.
Yeah, and
you know.
they're, consolidating courts, we've talked
Some,
about reducing, I mean, the Association of Towns, it's interesting. All the villages get to do all this great stuff that we don't get to do, but if they had one justice, you can deputize someone else to be a fill-in. Towns cannot do that, but the supervisor of the courts in Dutchess County, and they did not have a contact information for me to give to them. I had to call the county executive's office. They can designate another judge in another municipality to be coverage for us in the event of an emergency, that if we had
That's right.
one judge, they could fill in for us. So I do think that's something we should talk more about and
Jeff
group
did it.
together.
Right?
Jeff, do you want to fill in for us, because we're not at Pleasant Valley on Tuesday night?
Yeah, right.
For that 3 a.m. arraignment that we might have,
It might be a conflict.
but,
And even with all of these
Let him
conversations,
say what he's gonna say.
Well, I was just to say for the record, I'm a town justice of the town of Pleasant Valley, neighboring town. We do have the Taconic run through our town. I have a traffic night, probably with over 100 tickets on it. 100 individuals with tickets, and we collect a lot of revenue.
yeah,
So we operate in the black, not the reds.
yeah,
And it's
3
rough
compared to
get-
100.
yeah.
So some of your neighbor called out for arraignments in the middle of the night, so if you're looking to have someone like me deputized here, probably decline, so. just
But
so you
but
know.
I think that's one of the things that's interesting in having the task force with that Eastern Dutchess towns, is they are talking to Tom DiNapoli about this being a problem for all of these smaller towns.
Mhm.
And so, maybe they would let us deputize someone, for example. We could figure out a different way I don't know if that's a state law or if it's county, but anyway, I think we,
Yeah, I think there's different ways we
Yeah.
can save money. One is maybe go down to the one
Yeah.
judge, do the deputizing, the other, talk to the village to see if we can.
no matter what you do, there's going to be costs incurred.
Oh, yeah.
You just got to balance that off. The other thing is, with these types of joint speaking of towns with one another on the issue, who knows, it may bubble up to a state level, where the state legislature starts taking a look at these problems, because I can't believe that we're the only municipalities that are
Yeah.
suffering from this.
And it's not
And not
fair.
just Dutchess
It's not
County.
fair.
Right.
I mean, it's really not fair, particularly for towns that really do not have any resources to dedicate to it, and they're also operating in the red, so.
Yep.
All right, that's all for me.
Okay,
Sure.
okay, good report. Do you all have anything?
No.
No? Where's Levert? Is he out there? I just, well, I wanted to just tell him that I wanted to find out if anybody else had anything. Anybody else here in the audience have any questions or comments? No? Awesome. How about on the Zoom call? Okay. So, is he out there, James? Hey, Levert.
How you doing?
Good, come on up front.
Sit right there, Levert, if you want.
In the front, huh?
It's all yours.
Oh, man, I've been waiting for this.
So, you asked to speak before us, so we're going to give you the floor.
Put that on.
We're going to put a time limit, so state your case.
Well, as you can see, there's a very lengthy time limit that might happen.
Not tonight. We want to hear why you're here.
Oh, well, I think the town knows why I'm here.
Okay, well, what,
Well, make it official.
Well, the lawyer spoke to the town of Washington. Oh, it's being taped?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
good. I want it on
You
a
want-
tape.
yeah.
And they've already gone through everything. Meaning, here are the emails from 3 years ago. So the town's already seen all that, and that's why I'm here, because nothing has happened.
well, maybe you can enlighten us, because I haven't seen any emails. I don't know if anybody else has.
I don't know, like some board members might be new compared to just sort of give a brief
Yeah, well, this
summary.
was 3 years ago.
Yeah, so, all right.
That
so
the
give a
lawyers
brief
were involved, and
Yeah.
they spoke to the town of Washington, the building inspector, the
About,
neighbors,
about,
about the gun club, Millbrook Rod and Gun Club, next to my property.
yes. Go on.
So what was the issue?
The issue? I'll show you the issue.
Oh, just tell us the issue.
No, it's easier to show you this. If you had a neighbor right there pointing a gun at your face when you're standing on your property, that is the biggest issue. And the next picture shows a 55-foot high fence that they just built on my property line. And there's a picture of the man with a gun, and it's all open underneath that fence, pointed right at my face.
This is pointing towards your house?
I've got the camera in my hand. No, I'm on my property.
In your property.
This runs 200 feet along my property line before you get to my house. Now, to me, that's an issue. Now, I've been to the state police. I've been to the sheriff's department. They told me this is a civil case. They can't do nothing. In this woke world we've got now, a man pointing a gun at your face, I don't like it. And I can't get anybody to listen to me. I've even called 10 lawyers from here to Manhattan. The only lawyer that would do the case wanted $40,000 up front, and he said that he would have the case in court in less than 6 months. That was 3 years ago. And then we go up to today.
So somebody's pointing a gun at you, threatening you, and the
No, they're
police won't do
shooting,
anything?
public shooting.
Shooting
on the
at you?
grounds.
At you?
Pardon?
They're shooting at you. You said they're pointing the gun at you.
Well, if I'm walking on my property anywhere within 200 feet and that gun is pointed at me, I guess they're not pointing it at me.
Well, you said
They're
they're
shooting
pointing it at
clay
you.
targets. It's on a skeet field.
Oh, right. Right, I'm familiar with the area. I've been down to the gun club. I'm not a
Mhm.
member,
Well,
and I've seen the whole thing.
oh, well, that's good.
Right.
Because you probably haven't seen this neither. I've got 200 pictures that I got here that I want everybody to see, but we'll start with the first one, with the lead that's coming on my property also. Over 90 tons of lead is on my property. These are the issues I've got. This. I'll put it toward you guys. This is an aerial view, all to scale. 1 inch equals 100 feet. This is Woodstock Road where I live. This is the Millbrook Rod and Gun Club. This is my house. This is my neighbor's house, Buchheit, where they're shooting lead into his pond and on his property. These red lines are where the shot pattern can go. This is a skeet field that we're talking about. There's 5 or 8 positions where a man stands in each of the 8 and he shoots this way, you know, right where my finger goes. That's where all these red lines are right here. Well, you see my property?
How long has the gun club been here?
Since 1946 or whatever,
And your house?
for 30 years ago.
30 years. And the gun club was there, right?
Oh, yeah, they've been there. This house down here, where my neighbors live that
And
get
they
all
never-
the...
And they never shot before?
Pardon?
They never shot, 30 years ago, they never shot. They
Oh,
never
yeah,
did
that's,
shooting?
they've been shooting there for 75 years. But I only put the red lines showing where the shot goes on my property and showing where it goes on my neighbor's property. The shot also goes here, but this is all the gun club property. So I'm not bothering you with them. These red lines are showing mine.
Right.
And here's the distances. A shotgun will go 700 feet out of the barrel. Here's 600 feet, 600, all the way here. Here's 700 over on Buchheit's property. Over here is a federal, or no, Buchheit, this is Pecourt. Pecort's property is getting it. The federal wetlands is getting lead on it. Bucite has got lead on it in the pond. So that's basically what we're talking about.
But I thought that was all mitigated.
No, no one's talked to me about anything. And then here's a picture of the beautiful fence. There's a 6-foot high fence rule in the town of Washington. That fence is 55 feet. They never got a permit, never talked to the neighbors. They just built a 55-foot high fence right on my property.
On your property?
I mean, property line.
Was that was built in an effort probably to keep the shells from going onto your property?
Yeah, a great effort. 6-foot high fence minimum, I mean maximum. That thing's 55 feet high. Where's a 55-foot high fence in the town of Washington, other than on their property, 50 feet from my line?
Did it stop the pellets from?
Some of them, but it's trying to stop. Well, where's the pictures I just gave
Oh,
you?
right underneath there. Right there.
I've got another 200 pictures I'd like to show you one of these days. There's a picture of the beautiful fence too.
Yeah, I've seen the fence.
Yeah, out in the middle of the woods. On a scenic road. Woodstock Road is designated a historical scenic road. And you can see it from 9 different positions driving on Woodstock Road.
When they put that up?
I don't know, a little while ago.
Like recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the board, what you are coming to, obviously share with us your frustration, but
Is it the fence?
this is.
No, the fence has to come down. They don't even have a permit for the fence.
All right, well, why are you here in front?
For the fence pointing guns at me and over 90 ton of toxic lead on my property and over 8,000 pounds of toxic lead on Bucite's property. That's why I'm here. And it's been going on for 3 years. No one has said anything to me.
I mean, it's been going on just 3 years? They're just starting to shoot 3 years ago? I thought you
They've
said
been shooting for 75 years. I never knew about this until COVID. Because I lived in this town for 74 years. I worked 7 days a week. I was never home. And then 20 years ago, I said, well, geez, I'm getting a little older. Maybe I'll not work 7 days a week. So I went over to the Millbrook Rod and Gun Club and worked for them for free for 22 years, helping them out because I'm the nice neighbor, So one day, well, after I stopped working, I was working up at Johnson & Johnson's estate for 7 years, and they didn't want anybody up there anymore because they had kids up. The whole country was shut down, so I couldn't do the work that I had to do. So I went home and I started working at my house for 1.5 years, putting egress windows in the 2nd story of my house because now the zoning laws have changed and I wanted to update to appease everybody. So I was home, and one day I was driving down my driveway and it was cold. I had my window on the driver's side down this much. Shot came flying into the vehicle of my truck, ricocheted around in the cab as I'm driving down my driveway. So then, about 1.5 months later, when it started to warm up, I was out on my front lawn, which is, where'd my house go here?
There it is.
Okay, right here. I was right here on my front lawn with siding that I was redoing on because the windows were up on the dormer. I was spreading it all out on the lawn to dry because I had a lot of siding, and trying to dry siding is a pain in the neck. Next thing I know, I was being showered upon by lead shot, bouncing off me, bouncing off all the siding that was on the ground. Well, then I said, gee, maybe I ought to look into this. So I started walking along my property line while they were shooting, naturally down the hill enough to where they wouldn't shoot at me by accident. And the leaves were falling off the trees. The shot was going through the tree limbs and cutting leaves off the tree, heading to Peteport's property. I said, well, that was 200 feet of all this lead going on my property. Buchheit already knew about the lead going in his pond because I talked to him during this time that all this is written in this 40-page dysentery I have here. When I spoke to him during the COVID about another problem we were having with them, when every place in New York, in the United States closed down because of COVID, what do you think Millbrook did? They opened up the shooting to the public on Wednesday night to make a little extra money while everybody else in the country cut down everything down. Well, then that meant people coming up and down Woodstock Road, they were shooting from 4 at night until 8 o'clock at night during the whole year. And I went to Buchheit and said, geez, have you noticed any difference in the shooting around? Oh, yes, we know. And then they mentioned to me, well, do you know that they shoot lead in our pond right in front of the house? I said, yes, I've told them about that 25 years ago, and they deny it. So these are all the issues that I want to bring up. And they're shooting on the other side of property too, on the other side of Woodstock Road, where they shoot live birds out of a tower, and Buchheit owns land over there. They're shooting lead on his property on that side of the road, and they shoot lead on the Orvis Sandonis property and the wetlands on that side of the road. Well, these are the issues I've got. That's why I'm here.
So it's the fence and the shot, not the noise or?
The noise, I'm a shooter. I have nothing against guns. I've been shooting guns since I was 12 years old, but I never pointed a gun at anybody.
Did you think when you built your house 20 years ago that there was any shot coming on your property?
No. How would you wouldn't know unless you were out there on the front lawn when they were shooting, or driving down the driveway and have it come in your window.
So when you were building the house, you never experienced shot?
The shot is that the house is about 850 feet. The 700-foot line ends right where I'm telling you I was standing.
Well, I think as far as the shot goes and things like that, you should communicate that obviously with your neighbors. You probably have done that. And if it continues, you can always, the enforcement mechanism, I would think, would be, people would be fined if they're littering on your, on your property. But it sounds like their effort in building the fence was to try to mitigate some of that.
It's making it worse for me. What are they trying to mitigate? Shooting on my property when they're not supposed to? If they weren't, they're only 75 feet away from my property line. If this thing was done properly, they're supposed to be 500 feet, 800 feet from a next door neighbor's property line, because you're supposed to contain the shot to your own property. You're not supposed to put your lead shot on your neighbor's land.
Right.
I don't care what anybody says.
Okay, so I will ask for a rebuttal from someone, a representative from the gun club, who would want to, president of the club?
My name is John Cairns. I've been the president of the club for the last 4 years or so.
Yeah.
The club's been there since 1941, incorporated in 1941. Levert bought the land next to us, knowing that the club was there, knowing that he wanted to use the club, built his house, and has been a member of that club for years. Ran the shooting at the club, built a 5-stand deck, promoted the 5-stand shooting. He has shot more at that club than any 10 members combined.
What do you mean shot? I was working there.
They let you talk. Let them talk.
Well,
please
let him finish.
Please.
Okay.
That's what was going to happen as soon as someone starts coming up with comments. Because now I got to sit here and listen to stupid crap.
Well, they listen to you, so give them a chance.
Okay, as far as the shot going into Lee Buchheit's pond, that is nonsense. That's an absolute fabrication.
Kite is not here.
Lee Bukite's not here, okay? We put that curtain up to stop the shot from going up. It cost us $47,000, okay? We are in the process, we have retained 2 different contractors to block the curtain so it can't be seen from the road. We've worked with James Finley, we've met with him several times. We have devised a plan to block the view of the curtain from the road. But as far as public shooting, Levert knows more about public shooting than anybody because he used to have the Connecticut Travelers in there for years doing sporting clays tournaments, groups of over 100 on the property, which hasn't happened in a long time, okay? But nobody knows more about the shooting than him, and nobody has shot more at that club than him.
Brad, do you have anything to
Can I talk now?
No, I can back up what John said. I've been a member for, this is my 50th year. I've been a member of the club before Levert bought the property. That skeet field has been there since 1941. Was actually shooting before the clubhouse was built in there. And as John said, Levert has done more shooting than any 10 members of the club. He set up the shooting, a lot of it.
So, isn't there any way to remediate this, Levert?
I'd like to know how you're going to cover up a 55-foot high wall. What are you going to put up to cover that? Nothing. There is no way out of it. And I haven't been shooting there more than anybody in the club neither. I've worked there helping them out more than anybody else in the club. And when I ran the 5 stand, there was no targets in any direction to be shooting on Bukite's property because I know that the lead goes in it. I went down to their house while they were shooting, watched the lead go in it. Bukite and his wife seen the lead go in it, and they brought it up to me, asking me if I knew about it. And the people that owned Bukite's house 40 years ago, matter of fact, a woman is married to Tim Bonnecue. I forgot her name right now, but I just seen her about, 4 years ago because she was doing some work up at Johnson & Johnson's, and I seen her after 40 years, and she says, Levert, can I ask you a question? I says, what? Felicity, that's her name. She says, is the Millbrook Rod and Gun Club still shooting lead in the pond in front of the house? And I said, yes, and she just shook her head and laughed. So that's a rebuttal to what they just said.
That's hearsay evidence.
Yeah. This is not a hearing of any sort. We're just listening to,
Well,
you asked to come to speak, we're listening to you, and we listen to
I
any
mean, we're not
member of
an
the public.
enforcement.
Right. Well, the trouble is if I showed anybody with a civil mind in his head of somebody pointing a gun like the building inspector, he could have shut that club down, number one, and had this issue taken care of so nobody would get blinded if you ever got shot in the face.
I think that's a criminal matter, and that's not a.
It is.
No, I think.
Here, I've got the criminal matter right here.
No, I don't.
Actually, that's something that, because it's zoned for that,
It's zoned for what?
it's zoned for shooting, and they're shooting on their
Well,
property.
see, that's where a problem is too, if I don't mind saying so. That's a residential area.
It's been
They got
grandfathered
grandfathered in
It's
about
illegal.
76 years
Yeah.
ago. With no stipulations about nothing, except for the fact that they should have been followed by the guidelines of the National Rifle Association that deals with handling firearms safely. The NRA came into existence in 1871. Now, when did this gun club get grandfathered in? And they're not following the NRA rules and guidelines that they had since 1871?
But Laverne, if there's a question about lead shot being in ponds,
Right.
isn't that a DEC?
I already called them.
And what did they say?
They said that's a civil matter.
Well,
Everybody claims this is a civil matter.
I would be
Neighbors do,
surprised
yeah.
if they would say that.
That's what they did. I've got the guy's phone number and name home that I called.
So James, regarding the fence, is there any issue with the town?
Yes, there is. The fence is obviously visible above 6 feet 6 inches in violation of the 363 of the Town of Washington zoning code. However, given that the complaints here were not just the fence existing, which if that was the only concern, it would just be as simple as ordering it to be removed, that the hope was a good faith effort from the neighbors to help mitigate the more serious complaint, that of lead shot landing on the property. I discussed with the gun club before they went and installed it, that it would need to be not visible from the road or other properties in accordance with 363 subsection 4 of the zoning code. When it was actually installed, it's evidently visible. I went over with Mr. Cipher, took a look at it, reached out to the club. I've been working with them continuously, but not particularly aggressively, to try to resolve the situation in a way that seems to help mitigate the shot concern, while also bringing the fence into compliance, not just with the visibility, but the overall height as well. I forgot to mention that.
So we're working on that. We're trying to remedy this situation. Is that right?
That is, I am, and again, it is taking a very long time to do because the proposed screening involves planting, which ordering someone to plant trees that are just going to die seems like a poor choice.
I'm sympathetic to that.
Right, it will take time for them to grow because it's too expensive to buy very short,
If the
tall trees.
screening does not meet the code requirements, then it'll have to be further addressed.
Okay.
But at this point, that's what I said.
Right now.
Jim, is that acceptable to you?
No.
And why not?
I've spoke to a building inspector that used to work for for the town of Washington. And I asked him, what would you have done if someone built a wall 55 feet in the air when the limit is 6'6" in the town of Washington, didn't get a permit, didn't get a variance, didn't send the letters out to the people on Woodstock Road to ask them their opinion? He said he would have had the wall taken down. That's what I want to happen.
But if the wall comes down, the screening comes down, will that not increase the amount of pellets that you?
Increase, it'll go right back to what it was.
And what do you want that to be?
0. Why am I supposed to have lead shot on my property?
Correct. So isn't the attempt to put up some type of barrier?
There is no barrier. A barrier has to be at least 35 feet in the air to catch any of that shot. So there's a 35-foot wall. Well, that's illegal too.
Okay.
And it looks like hell. There's 9 places on Woodstock Road where you can drive down Woodstock Road and look right at this stupid fence. And I look at it every time I turn in my driveway because there's pictures right there that show you the fence right staring me in the face.
I have a question for the president of the club. When this issue arose, what type of options did you take a look at besides, and came to the conclusion that the screening was the best option?
Well, we looked at possibly relocating the skeet field because it's pretty much just the skeet field that we're talking about here. The skeet field had been tweaked years back, and we just don't have the option with the geography there of moving the skeet field because it kind of sits down in a hole.
Okay.
The topography of the land is what you can't understand in this room.
Okay.
Most of the shot is absorbed by a hill. The skeet field has a hill in between our properties that absorbs most of the shot. The curtain is a safety factor after the top of the hill.
Okay.
And the other fact is there's already a law in the zoning book records where you cannot put any structure up on Woodstock Road because it's a scenic road that is detrimental to the scenic view from Woodstock Road.
One other thing, as far as a shot going into Blue Kites, anybody in this room can come there on a Sunday morning when we're shooting, and you can tell it is impossible to shoot from the skeet field into Lee Blue Kites Pond. It's impossible.
See, now you've got him questioning my ability to tell you what I looked at with my own eyes. You can see lead bouncing off the water because it looks like rain hitting the water. That's how Buchheit knows. That's how Felicity Bonacue knows. They lived there, and the caretaker that was Felicity Bonacue's caretaker that took care of the property, I forgot what his name was, but he told me about it, and he told the Millbrook Rod and Gun Club about it way back then, and they ignored it back then too, just like they're ignoring it right now.
Well, I guess I mean, I was aware of the shot fence. I was aware that they put a shot fence up. Myself, I was aware. And I thought that all the neighbors had talked and that was a remedy.
No.
And so now we're learning something different.
Yeah, right.
So,
Can I just say one more thing? What this is really all about is Levert doesn't want the noise because he wants to sell his house, and nobody is going to buy next to a gun club. That's what it's all about. He doesn't want the noise.
Did I sit here and say I didn't want noise? Is that what I said on that tape?
It
No.
was okay when Levert was shooting there for years, but now he's ready to move on, and he's gonna have a hard time selling.
No, it was all right for Levert when he didn't know it was happening.
You didn't know you were shooting on your own property.
I didn't know I was shooting on my property? No.
Well, look, we're,
you didn't want to shoot. Right, we're aware of what's going on now, so I thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming in front of us. And we'll be talking to James and maybe.
yeah, your being here is a matter of public record.
Right.
Maybe we'll go into the minutes and,
I'm just curious that you went to all lawyers and they won't, why wouldn't anybody take your case on? I don't understand.
They say it's a civil matter.
Well,
You have to take care of it in a civil court with the town of Washington. And I went to the Attorney General because I want this case to go to the Supreme Court in Poughkeepsie and not Millbrook. He said he wants the paper that the town of Washington gives me to show me what they're going to do, and then he'll have something to look at.
well, I don't think it's our case as a town board.
Well, the biggest problem is the fact that they grandfathered in the gun club, is what I'm saying. The NRA has been in operation since 1871. Didn't they follow any guidelines as putting a gun club in a residential area?
But you keep saying it's a civil matter.
That's what they told me,
There's
you know,
there's
Gary.
attorneys that deal with civil litigation.
Well, it was the same thing when I went to the state police and the sheriffs and they told me it's a civil matter. I says, okay, why don't you bring your whole family with you and the judge? You people stand up on that hill on my property. I'll go down where that guy is with a gun and I'll shoot skeet. And you tell me how civil it is when what's going to happen next.
All right, so I'm gonna let you have one last comment, and I wanted the gun club to have one last comment. Do you have anything you want
Yes.
to close
They
with?
keep harping on the fact that they think they know just what I'm thinking and what I do. Well, they don't. They're harping on the fact that Buchheit is not getting any lead in his pond. Remember a few minutes ago on your tape, I said I walked my property and I heard the shot going through the trees, and the leaves, you watch them falling off the tree, you can hear the shot going through the leaves. You do the same thing standing on Woodstock Road on Buchheit's property. And they're trying to tell me that I'm a nutcase?
Okay, thanks for that comment, and you have a,
One short thing. If it's so dangerous, where is there a copy of a police report?
A copy, I called them on the phone. They didn't give me a copy.
80 years, there's never been a complaint.
Or an accident?
okay, so We appreciate you coming. And like I said, this will be made a permanent part of the record. Where it's gonna go, I just wish you guys could get together and work it out between you.
I'm not gonna work out nothing with them. They kicked me out of that gun club.
Well,
The guy's right behind me because I'm a useless idiot.
Well, we're not gonna get
And
into
that was before the fence was built, and that was before there was any complaint.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Do you have a copy of this?
No, that's the only one I've got.
Keep it.
You got rubber bands.
Yeah, it went wrong someplace.
Oh, right here. Right here.
Oh, thank
There
you.
you go. There's a second one right here.
I don't know if I wound it.
Thank you, Bert.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
And I might add also that everything that I just said is right in those emails that the town of Washington seen 3 years ago.
All right.
You know, you see where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. So, thank you, guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
Anybody else? There's any other comments on the public?
We asked
Did the
before.
gun club ever ask for a variance on the height of the fence?
No, that's Jay. I don't think so.
Actually, it's not a fence. It's not defined in zoning, so the only applicable zoning law that would apply is the height variance, and we are addressing that as well. The other thing too, we have met on a couple of occasions with Lee Buchheit and Neil Grossman, and invited them to tour the property and see the shooting things like this, and those conversations are.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, gentlemen. Anybody else? No?
Could I just, I'm sorry, I haven't waited for this, hard act to follow. But, yeah, I just wanted to say, I know the meeting's not about this, but I just wanted to indicate that the letter that Mr. Godard sent out this week created a lot of anxiety. I think you guys got that on Monday. And, you know, the letter itself kind of follows a pattern of his communications in the past. And, you know, I think the town board deserves tremendous credit for the work that he's done and to get us where we are today. And I think that that's been reflected. There's been kind of relative peace and tranquility. You know, everyone seems to be moving forward in a very positive direction. And there's even, you know, very positive developments from the standpoint of people, entrepreneurs being interested in investing in the town. And what I thought was notable about the letter wasn't from Godara, it was actually from Alan Rapligay and his representative. And at the end of it, the way that I read the letter was Alan was basically asking the town board whether or not this is a conversation that can be had. And I think that reflects the fact that Alan is very alive to what has happened, you know, over the last 2.5 years. And it kind of the opposition, you know, to that, and then the whole process that we've been through, you know, the fact that basically everyone has said that they, you know, or at least the survey said that people, you know, want this in a specific area, they want hospitality in a specific area. There's nothing, in my opinion, of Godara's presentation that fits into that plan, into what the town has just said. So I think that, you know, what I would respectfully request the board consider doing is to respectfully say to Alan that, no, this is not a conversation that can be had, because we've been through this, it's been 2.5 years. We've had, I don't know how many meetings we've had in this room, contentious, friendly, whatever. It's gone on for a really, really long time. And I think out of respect for Mr. Godara, out of respect for Alan, and out of respect for everyone who participated in the CPRC report, I think it would be a great relief to the community to have the board, you know, politely say, no, thank you. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we just got it. We haven't reviewed it, and we're
Understood.
looking. We're deciding how to respond to.
Yeah, understood.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it. Okay, how about a motion to close?
So moved.
I motion to close.
Second, and then a motion to pay the bills?
All in favor?
And another thing,
Aye.
just kidding.
Close, we're done. Done.